That's the idea. Okay, once you get those all practiced, I suggest that you do our little massage thing that we talked about in the beginning, and also stretch your wrists, because it's time to take those fragments and put them into expanded sequences through scales using very little picking. Once again, this is called legato. Here's the first exercise. Okay, basically what I did is I took one of the fragments, the one that went like this, and also another one that went like this, and combined them ascending through an A major scale. Descending, we shifted up to the next position in the key and worked our way back down the scale. Let me play the two scale positions by themselves, just so you know what they sound like straight through. And you can practice that sequence between any two positions in any key, or even using nonsense patterns, just shifting up by half steps, maybe something like this. Now let's hear the original pattern up to speed. Here's one more legato example. This one is in the key of E minor, and it shifts positions quite a number of times. So practice it slowly and make sure that you get those position shifts clean and clear. This also involves some right hand tapping. Here it is slow. Let's break this down into segments so you can practice each section and then put it all together. It's basically ascending in 3 octaves, and the pattern repeats. Here it is. So it's starting on F sharp and ending on E, and then starting on F sharp an octave higher, the exact same thing, and then 1 octave higher, starting on the B string. So this is a perfect example of practicing segments and then connecting all of them to get the whole run, because you might just want to practice each octave at a time. Then put it together. When you get to the top, you're tapping the G on the high E string, and it's basically a double tap. And then you're tapping A, and then back down to G. So you could practice that small fragment a few times and get that under your fingers. And descending, we have another 3-octave pattern. So you can practice each one of them as a fragment, just master that octave. And then put them all together. Now I'm going to play the whole thing, ascending and descending up to tempo. When we first started the band, we were all 17 or 18 years old. So the last album that we just put out, I mean, it's like almost 10 years later. So I think we've all matured as songwriters, and you know, we listen to the old demos and whatnot, and there's bootlegs of those demos and stuff, and it's just like, oh my God, what were we thinking, you know? So it's the music and writing has definitely evolved. To wrap up the topic of technique, I'd like to introduce a different style of picking other than alternate. It's called sweep picking, and some of you may be familiar with this technique, some of you may not be, but in either case I'd like to offer you my exercises and things like that basically isolate the technique, and then you can expand and apply it to things that you might already know. Now, I usually apply sweep picking to arpeggios and not really to scalar examples. And I also use it in a way where it's sort of a weapon or a tool to execute a fast flurry of notes. Let me show you a couple of exercises that work on the technique. Alright, there's two things to keep in mind when working on this exercise. One of them is to separate the notes of the left hand. In other words, you're not playing chords, but you're separating the notes and playing arpeggios. And also, with the right hand, you want to separate the notes as well. In other words, don't strum them all together, but push down on the pick so it knocks into the next string, sort of falling from string to string. You don't want to make separate motions like this.